to make sure you're reading stuff that you really enjoy. Don't just read to read because you think you have to. Like when you're in school and you have to read a book and you're falling asleep because the teacher says you have to read it. Find stuff that really excites you.
Welcome to the Optimum Human Podcast, the show that interviews the world's top experts in fitness, nutrition, mindset, and beyond. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Optimum Human Podcast. On today's episode, we have Angie Chek. Angie, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Brian. How are you?
Good. And Claude?
I'm doing fantastic. Obviously, you can hear from my voice that I've matured a little, so it's all good on my side.
So what are you, like the maturity of a 14-year-old now?
Yes, with the voice of an 80-year-old. It's pretty cool.
Perfect. So anyways, jumping right in, Angie, we're at a party. I ask you, what is it that you do? How do you respond?
Well, I am a holistic lifestyle coach, and what that means is I teach people how to think right, to breathe right, to drink right, to eat right, to move right, to sleep right. So basically, I help them understand what it feels to be healthy. So instead of just saying, read this book or try this program and you should feel awesome, I'm working with them so they understand their body so that they can feel optimally well, and that once they leave my coaching practice, they know how to take charge of their health and they don't need a coach. Basically, I teach them how to coach themselves.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old thing where you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach him to fish, he's never hungry again.
Exactly.
So Angie, how did you get into this type of job, career, lifestyle?
Well, I think it was my life path, my life mission, because it started really when I was born. It sounds kind of funny, but I think I was 6 months old, my mom said I started having a whooping cough in my crib, and it was me. I was wheezing, and I was diagnosed with bronchitis. And so all my childhood, I had asthma, bronchitis. I was going to the doctors. They were giving me injections in my arm and my butt to open up my airway, and so they would then give me all these medical drugs that made me hallucinate. And as a child, I couldn't understand what was going on. My head would go real fast. Sounds would be like click, 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 like high heels on the floor would be going click, 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 click real fast, or the fan would be going whoop, 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 whoop. And I couldn't figure it out. So I started reading medical books on, my health and trying to get it better naturally. And by the time, this became my lifelong obsession. And so the time I was in college, I was reading all sorts about herbal medicines, and I found out simple things like cat's claw would really help my bronchitis without taking all these synthetic drugs that they were making. And I just got really into nutrition. So that's what I went to school for my biology degree first, and then I went back for a master's in nutrition. And it was just, once I started learning about health and what it really meant to be healthy, I couldn't stop learning, and then I wanted to share it with the world. And so I got my own health on track. When I graduated from college, I took a job that I gained lots of weight in, and I was sitting down, I was doing research and development on dog food. It was a great job, but I didn't have a passion for it. I wanted to work with human consumption, and so when I was working there, I was working with microscopes and looking for hours under microscopes, and I gained a bunch of weight, and my health started to fade. And I thought, wait a minute, this is not what I went to school for. So I started getting back on track. I entered a national competition. It was a 3-month competition with a company called Muscle Tech at the time, and it was like a body transformation competition. And I went and just started eating right, exercising to get my body back. And after 3 months, I took my final pictures, and lo and behold, I won this competition out of 30,000 people. Whoa. And so, I was like, and I was so excited, but I knew this is what I wanted to do, and I was feeling so good that I realized this is what I need to do. So I quit my job at that research and development company, and I went back to school, got more nutrition under my belt, started becoming a personal trainer as well. I started coaching people that way. And as I evolved in my coaching, I learned about the Chek Institute and started taking a bunch of courses there, and fell in love with the courses and everything, and became faculty for the Chek Institute. So my whole life changed.
And that's how we met, and you helped us change our lives. So it's awesome how the circle, it comes around.
Right on, yes.
Right on. And now, I understand you recently well, not so recently, but recently enough, you had a little one.
Yes, he's only 4.5 months old. So yeah, it's very recent.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, he's doing really, really good. He's already 16 pounds. He's full of life and energy. He's fantastic.
Awesome.
That's awesome. And I just wanted to ask you how that impacted your health, your lifestyle, and because I do know we've got some mothers listening to the show. So could you take us through that journey a little bit?
Yeah, once I found out I was pregnant, I'm an older woman. I just turned 40, and I was excited because I didn't think I was going to have children. And then I got to a point where I thought maybe I should. And then when I got pregnant, I was really excited because I actually wasn't really trying to get pregnant. So it's kind of amazing at my age because usually women have to try or do something, heroically to get pregnant at my age. And so I just started concentrating on eating more organ meats and things when I was pregnant, so I'd have a lot of nutrients in my body, and make sure I rotated my foods when I was pregnant so that I had different vitamins and minerals, as well as I took a whole food multivitamin. But what I started doing is just studying everything about babies because I really didn't know much about babies because I never had to study them, So one of the things I started doing is reading a book called What to Expect When You're Expecting. And that's a really great book. If you haven't read it and you're trying to get pregnant or you are pregnant, for women out there, it's phenomenal. So I started reading that, and they also have a website called whattoexpect.com, and they have these forums so you can connect to women your age, or not your age, but your length in pregnancy. So I was in the March 2016 babies group. So I joined that group, and I started helping other mothers with their questions because of my nutrition background. And lo and behold, What to Expect actually contacted me and says, we really like the responses you're giving these women. Would you like to be a den mother? And I went, whoa, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, doing exactly what you're doing, so we'll just give you a badge that says you're, authorized to give this kind of information. And, and basically it's, I do it for free, but I love it. I was doing it anyway. And so they just acknowledged me, and I said, that would be great. So that way I was able to connect with other women and see what their problems were and see what's happening with women, because I realize now that there's so little information out there for women who are pregnant or, after they have the baby, what they should be eating, what they should be doing. And so as a holistic approach, you don't hear about that. You're hearing all this stuff that, maybe their pediatricians telling them that's outdated information. So now my motive, my passion is to write a book and help women understand what they should really be eating when they're pregnant and what the signs and symptoms that they're going through really mean.
Awesome.
That's awesome. And a resource like that, of course, is invaluable because a lot of people, they have no idea what to do. And getting pregnant at 40, like you said, is a challenge to a lot of people, unless, of course, they're fairly healthy and in touch with their bodies and, getting the proper things. So generally, one thing I heard on Rob Wolf's podcast probably years ago is when he switched everyone to more of like a paleo diet in his gym, people were getting pregnant left and right. They weren't even planning it. It was just happening. And it's just because their bodies realized, hey, you know what? I can sustain life now. So this should happen. Right. So I think treating your body right, the proper things come of that. Now, I had some questions about coaching, unless Brian, of course, he's a father, so he might have some questions for you.
Yeah, I was going to go ahead and touch a little bit more on the parenting. First thing I'd kind of like to know is what's the biggest lesson you've learned from your son so far?
One of the biggest lessons is that children don't just take 8 hours a day, don't take 12 hours a day, they take 24 hours of your day. So, if you're not wanting to be fully committed to being a parent, it is a full-time, overtime job. And what I learned right away is to stop trying to be everything I used to be and focus on being a mom. And I think a lot of the pressure I had the first month or two of having the baby is trying to do everything I used to do and realizing there's too many things to juggle, and that leads to stress and anxiety, and then I felt like I wasn't a good mom, and I realized, wait a minute, it's not that I'm not a good mom, I'm just trying to do too much non-mom stuff. And so really, I'd write down things that were important to do in a week, and I'd say, okay, what can I do this one time? So I'd say this one day, like today I'm going to go to the bank, or today I remember when Mana was born, I had to get his birth certificate. So it was like one day was just to get his birth certificate. And so I'd go and got his birth certificate. And one day was to get his passport because I was going to be still traveling and teaching. So I was like, and that was just the one accomplishment. So not to put too many things on your plate, when you're a mother, to say, you know what, this is my job. And then to realize there's nothing more important than taking care of my son right now. And that was the biggest learning lesson. Once I got through that and realized, okay, just relax and not do as many things, being a mother became a whole lot easier.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and something I struggle with myself as a father and also as an entrepreneur. But what about let's go 2 or 3 things that are your biggest focuses to make sure that he's happy, healthy, and whole.
What are the things I focus on for my son?
Yeah.
Well, breastfeeding. Right now he's still breastfeeding, and I think that's the most important thing a woman can do is breastfeed. There was a lot of stuff out there before that, you could get as much nutrition out of a bottle than you could out of a breast, and it's really not true. The research is now coming out that breast milk is like super amazing. In fact, as I've been reading about it, I was amazed of all the things the human female body does. Like, for example, on the areolas of the breast, there's actually bumps that develop on the breast, and they actually are sensory glands for the baby's saliva, which I didn't even realize this happened. And what happens is when the baby's nursing, it tells the body what the baby's starting to be deficient in. And so when your baby's nursing, it starts changing the macronutrient content based on what the baby's needs are. So if it needs more protein, it will give more protein. If it needs more fat, it gets more fat. And so I thought that was quite interesting that its nutritional composition is constantly changing based on the baby's needs, which you can't get in a formula. And so I thought was mind-boggling for me. And there's nothing, there's all the nutrition from the immune system, so the babies hardly will get sick if you're breastfeeding, unlike if you're bottle feeding. So it's just amazing what the human body can do. And I think it's the most convenient thing to do too, because if you wake up in the middle of the night and the baby's hungry, all you have to do is pull out your boob, But if you have to get up and go warm up a bottle and, do that takes a lot more work. And then you have to sanitize the bottles and everything. So all in all, it's so much easier to breastfeed.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Brian pulls out his boob, but it doesn't have much use for him.
Yeah, no, I've tried that. It doesn't work for me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
not quite the same.
Not quite.
He's not as evolved yet.
Right.
No.
Yeah, I am reading books right now. There's one book I'm reading called Super Nutrition for Babies by Catherine Ehrlich, I think is her name, and Kelly Genslinger or something like that. But if you look up Super Nutrition for Babies, you can't miss it. It's I bought it on Amazon. But it talks about what the basic steps for introducing foods to your child are when they are starting to eat. So when Mana's 6 months old, I'm going to start introducing foods to him. And interesting enough, they say to start with things like egg yolk and liver pate. And you think, wow, but what the idea behind it is those are, I guess, very similar nutritional content to breast milk. And they start craving these, organ meats instead of eating, sugars and sweets. So a lot of moms will go to like apple juice and, fruits and things that are sweet. And then the baby's palate changes and only wants sweet foods. So it's very hard to get them to eat vegetables after you introduce a lot of fruit in their diet.
Right.
So if you introduce the other stuff first. And so I'm reading about this book and it's quite interesting. So I'm hoping to, quote unquote, do it right.
Yeah, and for sure.
Whatever that means.
Right.
Well, it just made like something ring in my head, meaning like people are metabolically damaging their kids pretty much like almost as soon as they're out of the womb. And they're feeding them all this baby food and they're, giving them like, I've heard of parents giving them like Coca-Cola when they're like 6 months old and stuff like that. And I'm just like, you're setting your kid up for some health issues down the line by doing that stuff. And
oh, absolutely. And then there's a research on it that babies can't taste like a solution of liquid that has 20% sugar in it. And that's because they've been drinking Coca-Cola. And they think, oh, Coca-Cola, that's horrible. Who would do that? What is almost the same as that processed apple juice that you give. It has high sugar content. And when they drink that, it super saturates the taste buds, so they cannot taste sweet. So consequently, the kids are adding more sugar to their cereals that are sweet enough, things like that. And they can't get enough sugar in their diet because they can't taste it. And so now it sets them up for diabetes, obesity, all sorts of problems.
No, for sure. And I mean, nipping it in the bud early, like you are, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as the old saying goes. And I just find that awesome. I'm gonna definitely be reading your book. I'll be one of the first people.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I did just want to add something in here for our listeners. It's people are doing this because of a lack of good information. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's just we've been given bad information for a long time, and I just wanted to kind of make that clear to people. And so when we know better, we do better.
Absolutely. I mean, things like, I know a touchy subject is vaccinations, but one of the things I'm looking into is investigating those, because some of them are just outdated. Like, for example, when the baby's born, what they like to do is put this blue goop on the baby's eyes, and it's a vaccination. So it prevents them from, they say, disease. And I said, well, what kind of diseases? And it turns out all it's preventing the baby from is if the mother has chlamydia or what's the other one? Gonorrhea. And if they have those, the baby can go blind. So they put this blue stuff on the eyes immediately when the baby's born, and then the baby can't see for the next 5 hours. So that time that's so important for the baby to connect to mom and see what mom looks like, they can't see, which prolongs that connection to the baby and the mother. And wow. So it's really kind of alarming to me, because it's like, wait a minute. If you've ever been pregnant these days, it's like the doctors super test you. Like when you first get pregnant, they test you for all these diseases. And then right before you give birth, they test you again. So it's like, if you don't have these diseases, then why are they still giving you this ointment treatment on the baby's eyes? So that's one thing you want to look into, because if you had this, then having the blue ointment is a lifesaver. Make sure your child isn't blind. But if you don't have these STDs, then there's no reason to do this to your child. Yet they do it still routinely. And it's happened, I guess, when I did the research, that the reason why it started as a standard practice, because after like World War II, a lot of husbands were going away into the war, and they were having extramarital affairs and relations. And when they came back, they didn't tell their partner that they got this disease, and maybe the partner was unaware of it, and then the child comes out blind. So they just made it a standard procedure to just put the blue stuff on the baby's eyes when it was born. So, and it's still going on today as a practice, and it's like, Are you kidding me? So, there's some vaccinations that are just not necessary for the child.
I wasn't aware that that's what that was.
Yeah, not a lot of people aren't, and the doctors don't tell you. So when you start doing the research, you go, whoa, wait a minute. And then if you ask them, then they'll admit it. But it's like, well, why do you still do this? But I think it's all about money, personally. People, they make a lot of money by putting all these vaccinations in your child the minute they're born.
Well, the pharmacological industry is quite a big one. Yeah,
absolutely. And they're under a clause that says they can't get sued for any kind of damage being done to people with vaccinations. So pharmaceutical companies are on a rampant rage to make more and more vaccinations, because they will never have to worry about a lawsuit.
Yep, it's gone a little bit rampant, and I think people are starting to finally kind of realize that they can't live their entire life on pills and injections and stuff like this, and that their grandparents weren't living like that, until now. I mean, when people were in their 30s back in the days, they didn't have, all this medication for thyroids and diabetes and stuff. But things have changed a lot in 100 years.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, Claude, I believe you had some questions for Angie regarding coaching.
Yes. So, I mean, coaching to me is the favorite part of the job. I mean, learning and kind of distributing that knowledge is just my favorite part. Now, the way that you taught us in HLC was awesome. You were very down to earth. You were giving information, but you weren't coming from a place of, I mean, some teachers are very condescending, and others they just don't divulge the information very well, I guess. So for people who are looking to become better coaches, what would be like the top 2 or 3 tips you would give?
Well, I think it's just like you said, you're giving information. And so it's not my job to tell you what to do. My job is to give you tools and educate you so that you can make the best possible decision. And so then, I think some coaches think that they're now wanting to be the parent of that person and to control them and do this and eat this and don't do that. And there's a saying that says if you just become their parent, eventually that client of yours is going to grow up and be a teenager. And what do all teenagers do? They revolt against their parents one day, right? So if you never become their parent, you just become their friend and just say, hey, listen, this is the information I have, and give them a background so they can choose appropriately what's right for them. A lot of times people say, well, what should I eat? I say, well, listen, I just met you. You've been in your body for 20, 30, 40 years or however long it is that they've been in their body. I said, how would I know what's right for you more than you do? I said, all I can give you is an educated opinion or a guess and some suggestions, and it's up to you to take that information and try it on and see what it feels like.
That's true. And I've come across a lot of people that have, I guess, not been ready for appropriate change yet. They're kind of getting there, and they're kind of, I guess, for lack of a better word, they kind of get stuck. And you tell them what to do, you show them the different books, the different options, you say sleep is important, and they're still not following sort of the right things. So with that sort of person, what would your approach be? Somebody being, I guess, difficult.
What we do at the Chek Institute is we teach a 1, 2, 3, 4 step process. And the number one is the dream. So finding your client's dream, what their love is, what their legacy is, what they're dreaming about. And without finding their dream, then it's just more information for the person. So ultimately they're like, why do I want to do this? So when things get tough, it's kind of like it's so easy to go back to your old ways. But if you say, wait a minute, let's connect to what you really want to do with your life, that can have enough power to sustain them to say, I'm doing this because I do want to be the best athlete, or I want to be the best coach or the best teacher or whatever it is that they're doing. And knowing that if they follow through, they're going to be in the best shape and the mental clarity, and they're going to have the best chances of succeeding on their dream. And so without finding their client's dream, you're pretty much, I find that if without a dream, your client might be motivated for the first 2 weeks, and after that, their motivation starts to go downhill. But if you can connect them to something they really, really want, then that motivation will last them for the duration of your coaching.
Awesome. I think it's a great point to bring home to a lot of people. A lot of people kind of think that, losing 10 pounds is their focus. They just don't dig why they want to lose that 10 pounds.
Yeah, I have a saying about that. It's like, what do you want on your tombstone? You say, here lies, Angie Chek, spent her entire life losing 10 pounds, and it's like, it's like, that seems so shallow when you realize, wait a minute, if you focus on the dream, like for me to be a coach and go around the world teaching this stuff is a passion for me. And I want to eat right and exercise right because it gives me the energy to do what I love to do. And then 10 pounds will just come off as a secondary thing because I'm not focusing on it. I'm focusing on my dream, which is to do what I'm doing.
Totally agree. Now, where are you right now in your I guess studies is the word I'm looking for? Like, I know you're doing a lot on the pregnancy side, but are you still doing the HLC coaching, or do you plan to? Yeah,
I still have my coaching practice, and so because I also teach around the world. I teach usually once a month for 3 to 5 days, so it gives me the opportunity for the rest of the month to not coach at all if I didn't want to. But I do have a steady clientele. I usually don't push myself, so I don't see more than 1 or 2 people a day. So that way I have plenty of time for my little one. And so right now I'm working with Paul Chek to create for me to teach HLC 3. So right now I teach HLC levels 1 and level 2, and I'm recreating HLC 3 so that it will be a little bit easier if anybody's taken a Paul Chek course. Paul has a standard all his own where he will teach you, but not every single class is standardized. He will go based on the class and what they need. And so the class gets exactly what they want, but then everybody says, oh, I'm HLC 3, but each class was uniquely very, very different. So I'm working on standardizing it so that I can teach it, or any other instructor for the Institute can teach it. And that way, when someone says I'm HLC 3, we know what each person's level of education is because it's exactly the same material.
Because now only Paul is teaching HLC 3, if I'm correct.
Correct, yeah, and as of a couple years ago, he was the only one teaching HLC 2, and then I took over that, and now we have 3 instructors teaching HLC 2 now. So, awesome. Yeah, So we're trying to free him up so that he can continue making more programs. He just came out with a new 4-quadrant coaching program that's going to be available online. He's actually teaching one more time in the live version, and after that it will only be available online. But anyway, he's created that, and we're now working on the children's course together. So we're freeing him up so that he has more time to create more projects, more classes.
Yeah, I've definitely been wanting to get something on children from him since pretty much since I first came across Paul. So definitely looking forward to you guys work together on that.
A lot of people have. A lot of people are very interested in what they should be feeding their because there is so much conflicting information out there. And if you're not like me, who's passionate about nutrition, reading everything, you just take for granted what the pediatrician tells you, and you think, okay, well, this is what I've been taught, or this is what my mom says, and I'll just do this, and it may or may not be the right thing for your baby. And so, getting out tools for people to really understand why. And so, again, we won't be preaching. We'll just giving us your education and the history behind the reasons why we're doing it. So like the vaccination example I gave you. So it's like, okay, you can do this, but know that you may not need to if you don't have these STDs, that kind of thing. And so just educating people so that they truly can make the best decision for their baby because they're getting the education behind the reasons why they're being told to do something.
It makes perfect sense. And I think it empowers people. And that's what I love the most. It's like, here's the info. If you want it, use it. If not, then, at least you know why you're not using it,
Right. Right. And I think people are, like you said, are getting frustrated with the medical system, and they are looking for alternatives of taking care of their baby. I mean, it's just like simple things like cradle cap, and people, you go to the doctor and they give them some chemical shampoo to rub on their head or something they take internally that will take the cradle cap away. Well, when you do the research, cradle cap is just the skin cells on the head growing too quickly, and so it doesn't have a chance to chafe off. And so the best thing for cradle cap, whatever that is.
Is new diapers.
There's new diapers, right. No, cradle cap is breast milk, believe it or not. If you squirt breast milk on your baby's head, the enzymes in it will break down those cells and clean up the cradle cap overnight. It's amazing. And so it doesn't cost you anything. There's no chemicals involved. Safe, effective. So there's such easy ways to help babies. It's like even like diaper rash. And I've been fortunate. Mana has never had diaper rash, and I'm reading on that too. That says if your diet is clean and you're not putting a lot of additives and chemicals and preservatives and dyes and things in your food, that your milk is cleaner. The baby is less likely to get a diaper rash. A diaper rash is very common in formula-fed babies. But if you did have a diaper rash, they have all these creams on like Desinix and stuff that's all chemical-based for the baby. Well, it turns out that coconut oil is one of the best things you can put on a diaper rash. It's antifungal, antibacterial, and it's all natural.
See, this is the type of information that needs to be distributed in a booklet to every parent.
Absolutely. And I don't see why any parent wouldn't want to try these natural methods because they are extremely effective. I think they're even more effective because there's no side effects and you're not putting a bunch of crud in your baby's mouth or on his skin or something. So absolutely.
No, for sure. And that's the way I view it myself. If a person is healthy, they shouldn't have, too many side effects from just natural health issues. They might get sick once in a while, or they might get a sunburn or something, but to get all sorts of freaky conditions.
Right, that's signs of disease, disease.
Exactly.
So that means something's wrong and something needs to be addressed. And people don't look at that. They think, oh, I just take a Tylenol and take away that, and I take this, I'll take this for my tummy, I take that. And they don't realize that's their body screaming for them that they're doing something wrong or they need more help or need something different in their diet. And people just do the same thing and think, oh, I'll just take these pills now. Yeah,
and these are like warning signals, right? And it's like,
right.
And your body's screaming at you and you're like, oh, just shut up. I'll take a pill. It's fine.
You're right.
But I'm glad that, Paul Chek and you and several other people are putting out quality information so people have the ability to help heal themselves, and it's fantastic work. And I think it's one of the most fulfilling things you can do with your life. And that's why I'm in business myself.
Right on. Me too. It's great.
Now, I've got an unrelated question. I do know you're a big reader, and Paul is also a voracious reader, I've heard. So for me, I'm not gonna lie, I hate reading. It's one of those things where, I open up a book if I want to fall asleep. So do you have any tips for me or other people like me that like the information inside the books, they just extracting it is not the easiest part?
Yeah, what I've done a lot of is audiobooks, because now they're reading a story to you. So I listen to a lot of books in my car, like to and from work. So the 20-minute drive I'll have a book on tape. And that way you can focus on the book while you're driving, so you're multitasking. You're not bored because it's something you wanted to read, but you don't have the time to sit down and read it. So I do a lot of audiobooks. I also have an account with audible.com, which is through Amazon. And so then you buy books and you can download them to your iPhone. And so whenever you're like waiting at the, anywhere, we have to wait anywhere, you would just put on your headset and listen away. So that's something I do. But that's the easiest thing. Also, I usually read during the day, not at night or, when I'm tired, because then I fall asleep too. But I usually find things that I'm really into, so I'm excited to read. I think that would be my tip, is to make sure you're reading stuff that you really enjoy. Don't just read to read because you think you have to. Like when you're in school and you have to read a book and you're falling asleep because the teacher says you have to read it. Find stuff that really excites you. So I always find books that are, I go through periods where I study different things. Like sometimes I'm studying my shamanism. Like right now I'm in my motherly phase, so I'm studying baby nutrition. And so it's something that I'm going to apply to my life. So reading a book is like it's something I'm directly going to use. Same thing like as a coach. I only read books on health problems that are directly applying to my client. So if a client comes to me with osteoporosis, then I'm reading about osteoporosis. But now I'm going to remember the information because now I can relate it to a specific client. So I don't try to read every single health issue on the planet because it would just be information. But applied information now is knowledge. And so now I can take it and remember it because I can go, oh, Mrs. Jones, yeah, that was the osteoporosis person. Oh, yeah, that's arthritis. And then you remember what you read and you can put a face to it.
That's a very good technique. I'm going to have to use that for sure. Now, you did mention shamanism. Do you mind if we get into that a little bit?
Of course.
All right, awesome. Brian, do you have any questions on shamanism?
Go ahead. I'll think of something.
He's pondering. So I know, is Paul a shaman?
Yes, Paul's a shaman as well as I am.
All right, and I'm assuming that his influence somehow influenced you to becoming a shaman?
Nope. We both got into that before we met, and it's interesting. So we found out we were both shaman after we met. So no, I had that was my own voyage trip. I started studying energy medicine, and then got into shamanism. I studied through shamanism.org, which is the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, with Michael Harmon. And I did his classes, and then I did his 3-year advanced training program. So that's where I got my background. Paul's is directly into Native American healing shamanism. And so he had a different background in shamanism, but it was, it's all pretty much the same when you get down to energy and working with spirits and guides.
That's awesome. And what got you into the shamanism? It seems like it's a slightly different realm than nutrition and physical exercise.
Well, my whole purpose on this planet, I think, is just to help people heal, and help them find a way to get away from their diseases. And so I was interested first in energy medicine, where I would, it's kind of like Reiki, where I use my hands to facilitate a healing and to break down blockages in the body. And so I did a lot of energy medicine, and that was how I got into shamanism, because through that same kind of people that are in the classes with you with energy medicine do a lot of shamanism. And so I was told about Michael Harner, and I remember reading about power animals and hearing about them. And so they said, oh, you really should get The Way of the Shaman by Michael Harner, his book. And so I said, well, that sounds very interesting. So because I was always just wanting more tools to help people, facilitate their healing, and so I thought that sounds like a great idea. So I bought the book, and he actually teaches you how to do journeys through the book, and it's all non-drug induced journey work. and it's using a drum beat. So you download the drum beat off his website, and you do journeys with it. And I got really good at it. And I thought, wow, this is really amazing, because the journey work is so profound. Like some of the journeys I've had, you would think I was on LSD or mushrooms or something, some kind of psychedelic, because they were so amazing and they were so intense that there's just no way you could make them up. And I think they're actually more powerful than doing some psychedelic, because you are on a sober mind and you just had a full-on vision. It's almost like the journeys are so real that you're like running through a 3D movie is the best way to explain it. And sure, it's like you have sensations of wind, and you can feel air on your face, and you can feel a sense of flight and jumping and running, and you can feel moisture and heat and fire and everything on your body, yet you're perfectly still and you're in this other realm working with this other world. And so I got really excited when I started doing this work, and I thought, I got to go to his classes. So I started taking the courses. They had weekend courses that I took several of them. And then I realized that, wow, if you take, I think, 5 or 6 of them, then you qualify to apply for their 3-year program. And so I was so into it, I thought, how could I not take the 3-year program? So I applied for it, and then I got accepted in. And they don't accept everybody. It's a group of shaman that actually, who work for the company, that see if you're ready to be a shaman. And then you get an introductory letter that invites you to become a shaman, basically. And so then I was in the 3-year program. So it just kind of evolved from everything from me wanting to learn about nutrition and herbs and healing and touch healing and sound healing. And then it was like, okay, what else can I work with? Oh my gosh, why wouldn't I work with my spirit guides and my power animals? That's a powerful tool. I want to put that under my belt too.
Oh, for sure. It sounds like it is. It's something that's not often used. So this might be a broad question, but what do you do as a shaman, like with clients?
Well, everybody's different, so I don't have a set protocol on what needs to be done. So it's kind of like I connect with my guides and see, ask them, what should I do with this person? Sometimes it's a mandala work where you have them doing artwork. Other times you're actually doing touch healing. Other times I'm using a drum to heal them. So I'm using my drum or I'm using my rattles to rattle around them and send energy through them with the rattles or the drum. Other times I'm doing journey work for them, next to them, where I go and look inside their body with like basically your third eye and see what the source of their problems are, and go inside there and see if you can remove any blockages that way. So there's no one way to work with them with shamanism. That's what's great about it. It's like, it's not a cookie cutter program. You are working with spirit guides. You are working in nature. Sometimes you're given information about foods they need to eat or herbs they need to have, or how to make something for them that will help them heal. So it's nice because you have to be open and receptive. It's not just like, oh, I'm a shaman, I do the same thing with everybody. It's so uniquely different.
So there's a big toolbox available to you.
Yeah, sometimes you're going in doing soul retrievals. Sometimes you're working with their past lives. All of that comes into play.
Could you walk us through what a soul retrieval would look like, just briefly?
Sure. Well, basically, what that means is we all have a soul, and certain times in our life, sometimes the soul may not feel safe inside your body. So, for example, like when you're a little kid, if something very disastrous happened, like a fire or flood or some major illness or something in the family, like crisis or abusive parent or something, that child may not feel safe inside their body. And at that point, their soul may fragment and they may lose a part of their soul at that level of that age. And consequently, as they get older, they find that they are kind of out of sorts. They just don't feel complete. They have anxiety at certain times of the day and they don't know why, or they can't sleep at night and they've tried everything to help that. And oftentimes it's because that's where the soul is missing part of it. So it might have happened in the morning and they have a problem in the morning, or something might have happened at night and they have anxiety at night. And so you go back in their life. So you take them through like a meditative trance, and you go back in their life to go back to recover any time of their life where they had stress or any kind of major, stressor, and so anything that was major in their life, you go back and you examine it. And so with like basically a third eye. I'm looking in that, I'm going in there with them, and I'm seeing they're with them, sharing with me, going through and seeing them as a child, and I'm looking around to see if there's parts of their soul fragmented, and then I return it back to them. And so it's quite a lengthy process, so I probably don't want to share all that on your podcast, but basically you're bringing it back into them. And so once they have that piece of their soul back, they usually have, they feel amazingly well. Like, it's successful because they usually have a lot of tears, a lot of crying. They feel complete, and they don't understand why. They just go, oh my gosh, I just feel so much better. They might even feel lighter inside, even though they're more complete. They feel like, I just feel like I'm me again, like something that was missing is now back.
Wow, that sounds powerful.
Yeah, it is very powerful. I've had clients that have seen therapist after therapist, medical doctor, physical therapist, massage therapist, everything for all sorts of, problems in their body, taking drugs and supplements and everything for aching pains in their body. And then they find out it was something like a soul retrieval. And they're like, are you kidding me? And they feel so much better. And they go, I can't believe this is so powerful, and my problem is gone, and I've been taking all these drugs to mask this pain or take this pain away, and the pain was just this telling them that there's something that needs to be addressed. So it's extremely powerful.
Now, I've been working with a coach myself who has suggested that I may have some issues from like the period of time in utero. Now, would that be something that
Yep.
that would be helpful?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll go back as far as I go to utero, figure out what happened there, and it's surprising people will remember so much during that time when they're in that kind of trance-like state. They'll remember conversations their parents had. They'll know if their father wanted them or their mother didn't want them, or if there was any turmoil between the grandparents, or any of those things will start coming out, and they may not have been aware of it without going that deep. And then they go, oh my gosh, I was listening to all of that when I was in utero. And I'll even go further into past lives. Sometimes they're carrying baggage that was unresolved from a past life. And there might be actually something on their body that's indicating a trauma from a past life. There might be even like a weird scar or weird something on their body that is not really a scar but looks like one, and it's actually something from a past life that occurred that never got healed.
Wow.
That is actually something I've heard before, and it makes total sense. And for people who are like skeptical, it's just because you're not really there yet. I mean, like,
right, and that's why I think I'm not just a shaman, because shaman, they go, oh, that's so airy-fairy. But you back it up with nutrition, you back it up with my biology degree, back it up with holistic lifestyle coaching, all this other scientific, left brain stuff, then they can go into their right brain and realize maybe there's more to it than just the scientific stuff we see. So I think that's what gives me my credibility. It's not just me saying, oh, I do this airy-fairy stuff. It's like, wait a minute. I have a scientifically grounded basis of how I run my business. And then I find that there are needs for this stuff. Not all the time, but when they are, they're very valid. And when the client improves, you realize there's no other way to help sometimes than these methods that are so, alternative.
Absolutely. Sure. But bringing it back to this plane, go into a few more canned questions. Let's say you're about to be stranded on a desert island, and you've got your book collection. What 3 books do you take with you?
Holy moly! Well, if I'm going to be stranded on an island, I'd probably bring like my herbal books. I don't know off the top of my head which ones, but I definitely have a book on what the plants and herbs in the wild. So if I knew I was going to be an island, I'd have definitely an herb book on cultivating that, because that's going to be the most important thing to find my medicine. Granted, shamanism also would help me in this phase, because when you're a shaman, you can actually connect and talk to the plants. And they will actually tell you what their purpose is. So if you don't have a book like that, you could just ask them, and then the plant will tell you, oh, I'm good for tummy ache, oh, I'm good for sinuses, oh, I'm good for migraines or whatever.
Good for giving you diarrhea.
right. All sorts of things, So I would definitely probably, if I could bring a book, I'd bring one, but I'd definitely just use my shamanic skills as well. But I'd have a book on that. I'd probably have a book on some kind of survival, like book how to make huts and how to make things to fish and to hunt from bone and things.
Fire.
So, because really, what would you really need on an island but books for survival? Because I was like, I have the best book on the world for such and such, but that would be, wouldn't help you in your situation. But, if I had a third book, I might bring something like that I'd love to read. I'm trying to think of something that would be something I wouldn't mind reading over and over again.
Can I rephrase the question?
Yeah, for sure.
Now, let's say you're going to be stuck on a desert island for 2 weeks and you've got all the provisions and shelter you need. Let's say it's more of a resort situation, but you can't leave, but you've got, 3 books that you absolutely love. What would those 3 be?
Let's see. So it's the books I have read already or books that I want to read? Anything
that you feel would be...
Well, I would probably, being in my current state right now, I'd probably have my Super Nutrition for Babies because that's something I'm wanting to learn about and master for my little boy. I'd probably have a book on shamanism because I'm always trying to learn more things that have been written. So, what's his name, Valobo, or some kind of healer that I haven't really studied much. I'd probably go and find a book on other things I haven't had a chance to read yet.
Would you say that Way of the Shaman would be a good introduction into shamanism?
Oh my gosh, yes. That's why I mentioned it. If you have never read a shaman book, that's The Way of the Shaman by Michael Harner is probably the book you want to start with because it will give you an idea of how it works. And it has simple tools. And it's so simple that people read it and then go, I didn't get anything out of it. Do the exercises. Do the exercises. And that's... Because otherwise it's just information, right? Until you actually do what he read, because they're so simple, you think, I'm not going to do that. But I studied that book forward and back and did all the exercises and really got deep into it. And it was like, it blew my mind. It was just so wild. So yes, that would be a book that I would recommend for someone who was somewhere wanted to learn about shamanism. And you know what was, I just read this book. Actually, I read it on audio, so I listened to it. It's called Being True by Tammy Simon. And that was really fantastic. I don't know if you're familiar with Tammy Simon, but she's the owner of the website SoundsTrue.com.
Okay.
And so that's where you buy all your books from all the inspirational speakers on the world. You can get from probably Oprah Winfrey to... who else? Deepak Chopra to any of those people like Hay House authors. Tony Robbins, right. That's kind of Dr. Wayne Dyer, those people. Okay. And so she goes around and she interviewed, this is how she started, interviewing all sorts of spiritual people all over the world. And that's why she called it Sounds True, because it's like the information sounds true. But some of the stuff we don't really know if it's true because, unless you've been there or, you hear about these spiritual experiences, all you can do is feel the vibration and go, does that sound true or does that sound fake? So she interviewed the best of the world and put a bunch of interviews. And now she has all these authors on there. And so she just wrote her very first book. So I think she's probably in her 50s now. And so she started her business back when she was in her 20s. And all these years of interviewing people person after person, she finally came up with her own audio series. And it was awesome. And I just really loved listening to it. In fact, I've listened to it twice now in audio. And I think it's like 6 CDs. Maybe not that many.
Does she narrate it?
She does. It's in her own voice.
I love that.
Yeah.
Nothing beats that. Because I'm a big Audible fan myself. Uh-huh. And it's just... There's such a connection when the author reads their own work. Right. And sometimes they go off on a tangent sometimes, and I just, it's awesome.
Yeah. So Being True, that's the name of the audio, and it's a great one. So if I was somewhere, I'd probably listen to that again because it's got so many nuggets in there that you listen to it one time, you won't get all of it. You have to listen to it 2 or 3 times to really get it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely going to put that on my list. Being True.
And if it was somebody else who was saying, I want a book on health and nutrition, I don't know what I should read, I would tell them How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek, because that is like the basis of all my holistic lifestyle coaching. That book, it's only like $20, and it has so much information in there. Like, I've read it 7 times, and I'm still getting information out of it. It's one of those books that it's got so much, you can't possibly absorb everything the very first time you read it.
Yeah, I'm still nowhere close.
Yeah, that's one of my most common reference books when either doing research for myself or working with a client.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like when my clients start with me, oftentimes I have them read a chapter and then I'll read it with them. Like I won't read it at the same time, but that week I'll read it. And then when I see them the next week, I talk about that chapter. And it's just a way for me to remember the material. And it's just awesome because you forget how much cool stuff is there about how to eat, move, and be healthy. And you realize, oh my gosh, that was in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And it is like super dense, but I mean, you get what you need out of it each time you read it. It's that's the best way I can put it. The first time I read it, I got all the diet information. The second time, I got zone exercises. Third time, I'm not sure yet, but we'll see when I get around to it. Now, Angie, we kind of prepared you for the optimum human question. So, when somebody would ask you, who do you think the optimum human is, or what do you think encompasses an optimum human? What would you answer?
Optimum human, I think the optimum human would be, without giving names of people that come to mind, I'd say someone who walks their walk and talks their talk, meaning doesn't just say one thing and do another. People who are really authentic and living true. People who are eating right, exercising right, doing the things that make us real. There's so many fake things out there and so many people who masquerade as a health professional, but they're secretly taking steroids or growth hormones and things. So optimum would be someone who is truly authentic in that. And so, that's what makes someone who's optimum in my mind would be someone who's really living true to the earth. I think that's an important aspect of being optimum. It's like not just being healthy, but respecting the planet, and making sure that we're taking care of Mother Earth because we only got one mother, right? And so everybody's so quick to make these products and drench and leach the soils and take things out and then not replace it and leaving the next generation with little. So I think an optimum human is one that knows how to connect to the earth and take what needs to be taken, but replenish so that it's not destroying.
For sure. I mean, ideally, if even half the world's population was like that, we'd be in a much better state right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, something to strive towards for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Change always has to begin with ourselves.
Absolutely. 100%. And if we all did one thing different every day and tried to improve the planet, the world would be a different place in a year, and it'd be a different place every day. It would be getting better. So if we're just a little bit more aware and more conscious of what our actions are, I always tell people they vote with their dollar. Forget about the ballots and all these judging things that we do and all these polls. It's like vote with your money. So when you buy organic, you're investing in the organic farmer. When you buy commercial farms, you're voting for poorly raised animals with antibiotics and hormones and poorly treated practices. So that's vote wisely. So spend your money on food that's helping the planet.
And also your time. I know this is going to get me a lot of hate mail, but a lot of people have been playing this Pokemon Go thing. It's this new epidemic, I'm going to call it. And if they would be out there, at food shelters or planting trees or just, like, I don't want to say doing something useful because it's okay to have fun. But people are going on these 3-4 hour Pokemon expeditions, and while it's not necessarily a bad thing, it just seems like, I don't want to say wasted energy, but it seems like they're being blinded to more critical issues.
Yeah, I just heard about this from my hairdresser because I'm not into all those apps and stuff, and she was telling me about it. But I can see one positive is they're getting outside, so it is getting people out in nature again. So that's a start, but yeah, we can do much better than that. Just if we could maybe create apps that encourage people to, sit and get points for watching the sunset and get points for planting a tree and get points for gardening or points for, watering plants or something. That would probably be a better app and be more useful for the planet.
Maybe one day, but now people are falling off cliffs, walking into highways. They're trespassing into private property to catch these Pokemon. It's insane. Like I've never seen anything like it. Like there's a new news story every 3 hours on somebody doing something stupid because of this game.
Right. I've heard about it. I'm starting to hear about it too. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. And I think maybe games like this give us more awareness of what we need to be doing. So maybe it's just one more tool to wake up and say, hey, look at what are we doing here? Aren't we being silly? And let's maybe grow up and start being human again.
Absolutely. So, a couple more questions before we wrap up. Want to be respectful of your time. Who would you like to hear on this podcast?
Oh, wow. Well, I just love to hear people who are doing things like me who are in the health industry. So, just people out there making a difference in the world. So I don't know who exactly I would say I'd have to hear from, but I would love to hear more about people who are changing the planet for the better, people who are out there with a passion, who are making a difference.
Okay. Any authors from the books that you mentioned kind of come to mind, or just health practitioners in general?
Yeah, well, if you could get an author, awesome. Like even Tammy Simon. She's always interviewing people. If you could interview her, that'd be great. But to the top of my head, I can't think of anybody, because usually with like Facebook and stuff, I'm pretty connected to pretty much anybody I've wanted to talk to because of my social circles.
There you go.
So, so it's kind of like if I wanted to, I'd say, oh, connect me with that person, and I'd just connect with them via email, and usually can pick up the phone and chat to people, which is a nice thing about being in my industry. I do have the potential to pretty much talk to anybody. But for humanity, I think it's great for you guys to go out there and connect to more of these authors. And off the top of my head, I can't tell you exactly who, but if I start thinking of authors, I will email you a list.
Perfect.
Now, are there any subjects you would like to learn more about?
If I do, right now, I'm doing my learning in nutrition on children. That's really something I'm interested in. So, if I heard something I'd love to hear, I've actually listened to a few podcasts already on women who are talking about nutrition. Some of them you can tell are sponsored by the American Pediatrician Association, And so it's like, oh, okay. But I like to listen to see what information people are giving. So it's more of not so much that I don't know the information now. It's like I like to hear what they're offering so that when I do write my book, I know what's being said and what needs to be improved on.
Now, the Super Nutrition book, how old is that one? Is that fairly recent?
It's fairly recent. I don't know. It's a fairly new book, and I think they keep on updating it. So the book copy I have, I think, is only a couple years old from copyright.
Awesome. So we might try to get them on this show. Who knows?
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would definitely be listening to them because they that's people that I would trust and believe in, and that would be amazing.
Awesome. So we'll let you know if we book them in. We can get a couple questions from you.
Oh my gosh, for sure. I'll be listening.
Awesome.
So, do you have anything going on outside of teaching for the Chek Institute and obviously being an amazing mother?
We just it's still Chek Institute related. I just finished with Paul the HLC 1 online course. So holistic lifestyle coaching up until now was only a course that you could take in person. And so we offer it at different cities, major cities around the world. And now we have launched the online program so anybody can take it. And it sounds like you have to be a coach to take it, but HLC 1 is for everyone. So this is the public version. So it's a course for anybody who's interested on being healthy. So it's like going to a 3-day intensive training from, like, if you were to go to the course, it's from 8 to 6 every day. So you get that many hours, so over 24 hours of footage of Paul talking about the class, teaching the class online, as well as me. I do all the follow-ups in the program. So after the little sections, I go in and explain it in layman terms and help understand the material that Paul has just gotten you through. So I think that's a very valuable course that I think we need everybody to watch and listen to because it can definitely change the world. That's available through the Chek Institute, CHEK Institute.com, ChekInstitute.com. So that's what I've been up to. Other than that, just teaching. I just finished teaching this last weekend at the IDEA World Conference. And that was a lot of fun. I taught how to work in, which is the opposite of working out, which is zone exercises, how to breathe right and slow your body so you get more energy. And I also taught how to flatten your abs forever. And I think it was a good one for me to teach because I had gained 50 pounds during my pregnancy and have already lost 40 of them. And I'm almost 10 pounds away from my goal weight, which was my pre-baby weight. And it was all done through just proper nutrition.
It's an amazing thing when you're doing things right and the right things happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no need to kill yourself in the gym or with eating food that you don't like. So
that's exactly right.
So cool. Angie, any parting words for our listeners? Any thoughts?
Well, I guess my thought right now that comes to mind is saying how you do anything is how you do everything. So go out there, be you. Don't try to be anybody else. Everybody else has already been taken. Just be you. Do what you like to do, and try to live a life of health and vitality and giving back to the planet.
Awesome. And where can our listeners find out more about you? You have something called Angie's World, right?
Yes, angiesworld.com is my website. They can go there. You can sign up for my newsletter. It's free. It comes in once a week. And you can also probably catch me on Facebook. I post a lot of things about what I'm doing on there.
Awesome. Thank you very much for coming on. I know I had a blast. Brian, of course, always has a blast.
Absolutely.
I think this is awesome to reconnect after probably, 3-4 years?
Almost 3 years.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I still remember the laughter karate that those guys were doing.
Right.
Great.
We got their names.
We put them on the live online version because we love that video. So yes, everybody will be able to watch that if they purchase the online course.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's definitely awesome. I'm going to have to check out the online course then.
Right on.
All right, Angie, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Optimum Human Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to head on over to iTunes and give a 5-star rating and review, which will help spread the word to more awesome listeners just like you. Head on over to theoptimumhuman.com and subscribe to the free newsletter and get the Optimum Human's Blueprint to the Optimum Life. Download it instantly. Thanks for listening.